Hi everybody, Elin here. Today I come to you guys with my December wrap-up. And in the month of December I read a total of 16 books. And I also finished a couple of series, which I'm pretty proud of, even though I didn't manage to finish all of the ones I wanted to. But yeah, now we're going to go through what I read this month. Last book I read of the year, actually, was Always and Forever, Lara Jean. And that is written by Jenny Han. And this is the third and last book of the Lara Jean trilogy. I don't even know what it's called. But the first book, you meet Lara Jean, and she's have like a lot of crushes on guys before, but she's not really ever done anything about it. So she's been writing them letters and then put those letters in a hat box. But then one day those letters are mysteriously sent out to the guys and they get their letters, and of course that's really awkward. So yeah, that's pretty much what the first book is about, and I did like book 3 more than I liked book 2, which I did not really like a lot. But yeah, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. And then I also managed to finish A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas, and this is the third and final book that will follow Feyre as a main character. I know there's supposed to come more books in the same universe, but they will have different main characters. And the first book, you meet Feyre, and she lives in this cottage with her 2 sisters and her father, and they don't have a lot of money and they barely have any food on the table at all, really. And Feyre one day decides to go into the forest and try to hunt down some food. And while in the forest she comes across this wolf, which she kills and brings back to family. But it turns out that this wolf is actually a fae in disguise, and there's been like a really fragile truce between the humans and the fae folk. And she actually has to go with the Fays back to the Fae country and, you know, live out her punishment, really. So yeah, that's pretty much what the first book is about, and this is the final book of that, pretty much. I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then I also read In the Afterlight by Alexandra Bracken, which is the third and final book of the Darkest Minds series, I think it's called, I'm not sure. And in the first book you meet Ruby, and she lives in America, and in this country there's been some sort of disease or a virus or something like that that has killed a lot of the children in the country. And the children that actually survived this disease, they have gotten away with having pretty much magical powers. And Ruby is one of the surviving kids who's gotten powers. She's been in this sort of camp, really, for rehabilitation, as they call it, for the last 6 years, I think it was. And one day she's actually she gets help to escape from this place from a girl named Kate, who actually works there. And when she escapes this camp, she escapes from the rescue. And after that she actually comes across some other children that managed to escape from their camp, and they become friends, and then they're just pretty much trying to stay alive after that. And I did not like this book as much as I've liked the first 2, and the first one is still my favorite by far. But I did give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars, I believe. And then I also read Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab, which is the second and the final book in the duology called Monsters of Verity or something like that. And in the first book we meet Kate and August. Kate is a human, and her father is actually this big shot, really, and you have to pay him and you get a pendant in you know, exchange, and for that he will protect you against the monsters. Well, August is a monster, and he really desperately wants to be a human. And these two people's ways pretty much cross, and they meet each other, and this awesome friendship gets started, and you know, they're just trying to survive in a world full of monsters. And I thought this book was pretty much as good as the first one, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I also read Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the third and final book of the Grishaverse, if that's what they call it, I'm not sure. But in the first one we meet Alina, and she finds out that she is a Grisha, and she actually has a very special power that not a lot of other Grishas have had, like, ever. And of course there's people who wants to take advantage of that, and she's just trying to figure out who she can trust and who not to trust, and then she has to fight some evil, pretty much. And I really like this one. I think that the series is overall very consistent, but there were some things I didn't like that much, but I did give this book 4 out of 5 stars. And then I also reread Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll in this Puff and Chalk edition, which I got from my friend Janie, and of course I had to reread this, and I read this actually for a sort of 24-hour readathon that me and Jamie put together just for ourselves. And I just love Alice, and I think you all know what it's about, so I'm not going to tell you that much about it, but of course I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And then I also read Frost i natten ljus by Christopher Holst, which is a review book I got from the publisher called Bokfabriken, and this one was really good. We meet this guy named Oliver. He's 18 years old, and his grandpa actually died, and he's in New York for his funeral. And when they're on the way home, you know, they're at the airport and they're waiting for their plane, they find out that there's been a strike and all the pilots, you know, are not flying. So they have to stay a couple of extra days in New York, and you know, shit goes down from there. I really liked this one. It was really quick read, and I really liked the characters and everything that happened, and I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. And then I also read These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. In this one we meet Lilac and Tarver. Lilac is the daughter of the richest man in the universe pretty much, and Tarver is pretty much the opposite. And they're on this spaceship, and that spaceship, you know, crashes on a planet. Lilac and Tarver are the only survivors from this crash, and they're on this deserted planet really, but then after a couple of days it turns out that maybe they're not the only ones there, and they're just trying to survive, trying to figure out what the hell happened to the Ark baseliner that we were on that crashed. And yeah, I did like it. I'm not the biggest fan of books that revolves a lot around, you know, people trying to get from, you know, area 1 to area B, because I find that a little bit boring. But I really did like the characters, and I like the concept. So yeah, I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then I also read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which is actually my first book that I read from him, which I definitely want to remedy in 2018. But in this one we meet Mr. Scrooge, and he's not a very happy man. He's kind of grumpy, he's not really in the Christmas kind of spirit. So one day he gets a visit from an old co-worker who actually died, and he tells Mr. Scrooge that in the coming nights he will be meeting 3 different ghosts, and they will take him on a journey to look at his past, the present and the future. And the point of all this is trying to get Mr. Scrooge to realize what he can change in his life and what is not really good about it, and how he can help people really. And I really did like this one, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I also read The Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan, which is book 1 in this series called Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. And I love Rick Riordan, which you probably know by now. But I really loved getting a new series to start from him, because I mean, you get to be a part of the development and, you know, the groundwork of the world really. And in this one we meet Magnus Chase, and he's been living on the streets for the past 2 years because his mother died. And one day he finds out that he is the son of a Norse god. And you know, I don't want to spoil anything more than that, because that's pretty much all you need to know, but you get to learn a lot about Norse mythology. It's hilarious, it's kick-ass, it's once again hilarious. So I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then I also read Ditt livs affär by Fredrik Backman, which is a short story, so I definitely went fast reading, but Fredrik Backman is definitely one of the few Swedish authors that I actually follow and try to read all of his books. I only have like 3 Swedish authors I actually do that with, so of course I had to read this one. And in this one you meet 3 different characters that are all sick and dying from cancer. So the big question of this book is really, would you sacrifice yourself and your own life for another human being if it meant that your life will be completely erased and nobody will remember you? And it was really beautiful written, like all of his books are, and I really like the storyline and everything like that, and it went really fast to read. It also have a lot of like images in it, which makes it even quicker to read. So of course I really like this one, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I also read The Blood of Olympus by Rick Riordan, which is the 5th and final book in the series called The Heroes of Olympus. And since it's the 5th book, I don't want to spoil you guys on it, but this entire series pretty much revolves around Greek and Roman mythology. So there's demigods from these 2 different camps that have to work together to save the world. Just like all Rick Riordan's books, but we all love it. And I really loved it. I thought it was a really great conclusion. I loved the characters, I loved the plot. I mean, Rick Riordan can do no wrong. And I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. And then I also read Vej by Sara Bergmark Elfgen and Carl Jonsson. And Sara Bergmark Elfgen is one of the 3 authors that are Swedish that I actually follow a lot. And of course I needed to have this and read it. And this is a graphic novel, so there's a lot of, you know, pictures, so it's a very quick read. And in this one we meet Vej, and she's actually discovered in the water where she's unconscious, and then there's these Vikings that actually finds her and get her onto their ship, and then they actually come to this place where Vej lives. And in this one it's pretty much inspired by the Norse mythology. Since you guys know I love mythology by now. It was awesome. But we also meet giants and gods and kick-ass humans, and it was a really quick read. I really liked it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I also read Lucky in Love by Casey West, because how can you have a reading month and not read Casey West? She's one of my favorite authors, so of course I had to read this book. In this one we meet Maddie. She just turns 18, she buys her first lottery ticket, and she actually wins a lot of millions. And after this phenomenon, a lot of people are trying to take advantage of her. They're trying to get money off of her for different things, and she doesn't really know how to handle it. And the only person that is not acting differently around her is actually her co-worker, who she works with together at this zoo. And you know, it was a really cute read, definitely very Casey West. The part where she spends a shitload of money on dumb things and for dumb reasons, that really for some reason stressed me to no end. It was really stressful, but overall I really liked the characters, I really liked the concept of the book, so I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. And then I also read Ödemarkens barn, which is book 2 in the series called Dark Ages, The Mörka Tidevarven. And this one is written by A.R. Yngve, which is the person I got this book from, so it's also a review book. And I did read the first book a long time ago, but we meet this guy called Dark. And he has been like frozen down in this kind of capsule, and he's been in there for 900 years, and one day he is awakened, and he's obviously 900 years into the future. And it's very different from what he knows, but you know, shit goes down and he's trying to help the people who live there and everything like that. And this is book 2. And I feel like it wasn't really like I would have needed a little bit more explanations of what the first book was about, like a short conclusion that is like weaved into the storyline to be able to really follow what happened in that book, since it was like a year and a half since I read it before reading this. But overall I liked it, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. And then we've got into the last book I read. Technically it was the first one, but who cares which order it is. But that was Rosie by Leslie Pierce. And Leslie Pierce is definitely one of my favorite authors, so of course I have to read this. And I've had this one on my shelf for a really long time because it's so huge. But at the same time I know I will like her books because they're often very good. So in this one we meet Rosie, and she lives in this little cottage with her 2 brothers, her father, and she actually had sort of a stepmother for a while named Heather, but one day she disappears and nobody knows where she went. And a few years after that, her brother Thomas comes looking for her, wondering what happened to her, where is she, and everything like that. And that's when all of horrible events, you know, gets uncovered. And I really like this one. It's very well written, and happens a lot of things in it. and a lot of horrible things as usual in P.S.'s books, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Those were all of the 16 books I read in December, and yeah, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please don't forget to give me some thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel by clicking the bell button down below, and the little bell icon as usual, so that you're 100% sure that you get a notification for when I upload a new video. And yeah, I hope we see each other next time. Bye!